to that, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share it if you can. For those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow. Give us a 5-star review. All of that stuff helps with the algorithms and helps grow the podcast. We'll kind of do it in chronological order. We'll start off with that game because it's just gone. So Arsenal win 3-2 against Palace. You're through to the semi-finals where you could meet either Newcastle, Liverpool, and then obviously we've got the Spurs United game still to come. I stupidly thought that they'd cut these semi-finals from 2 legs to one single tie, but I read yesterday that they'd actually decided to scrap that idea. So you've still got 2 legs to get to the final. So that should be interesting. But I'm sure you've watched the game back and seen highlights and stuff like that. But what did you make of the game? And do you think it was a fair result on totality?
I mean, again, I don't think we played our best football, but we definitely were better than them. And this is the big thing. You'll hear me talk about this with the Everton-Arsenal game. We weren't good, but we were still better than them, and I think we still deserve to win. So yesterday with the Palace game, we dominated the ball. Again, we didn't do we did quite a lot with it. I mean, we ended up having quite a lot of shots, quite a lot of big chances. But again, still wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be, right? I think in terms of defensive work as well, we got a little bit iffy here and there. Again, I can't scream and shout at the goals too much. But yeah, I think in general, we dominated the game in terms of like a lot of the key stats around, possession, XG, big chances, etc. But it just, you look at the scoreline at the end of it and you think, what the hell, that was an absolute struggle or a battle. And if you think about the offside, the second goal that we scored, Gabriel Jesus obviously clearly offside, it could easily have not gone that way. So it's a really difficult one for me to properly judge. At this point, I'm just getting back to results. Are we getting good results or not? Because I'm never always happy with the performance. And at this point, I kind of need to play ourselves into some confidence. And we only do that through getting results. And with this one, obviously, we came from one goal down, ended up winning 3-2, made it closer than it needed to be, but just happy to get the win and go into the next round. So overall, can't complain too much, but let's say I'm not over the moon.
Yeah, I think it was one of those cliched games where it was really tale of 2 halves, because the first half you weren't great. Like Palace were 1-0 up, and even though you had a lot of the ball, you didn't really have that many chances, and they were really, really tight defensively. But as soon as you made those subs, second half, totally different game. Absolute domination, clear-cut chances. Odegaard was cutting people open. When Saka came on, he started to, unlock the doors. And I think you deserved the win on that kind of that massive turnaround, because it was such a huge difference from that first half to second half. But I do think you deserved it. And like Eddie Nketiah's second for Palace. The second goal for Palace, his first, was kind of out of the blue. So, I mean, it probably was more of a 3-1 game, that kind of just right against the run of the play. And then Palace put you under a bit of pressure at the end, but I think you did deserve to win. But yeah, what did you make of Gabriel Jesus' hat-trick? I think there's some nasty stats out there about how long it's taken him to score. I don't know if it's quite Grealish level, but I think it's not a million miles off. So it's been a while. He comes in, bangs in a hat-trick. Yeah. Do you think this is going to give him confidence now, and he can make that striker slot his own, or do you still need to go out there and get a new striker, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, of course we still need to go out get a new striker. Nothing changes around that, right? It's not like Gabriel Jesus is new to the club and he's just been hampered by injury since he arrived. Like, he has had good runs of playing and has never been the most clinical striker, right? Even as he said himself, scoring is not his strength necessarily, right? He's really good at other things. We need a striker whose scoring is their strength. If he can replicate this form from now until the end of the season over and over again and not get injured, then maybe I'll change my mind. But I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment and say because he scored a hat-trick in the bloody Carabao Cup against Crystal Palace, one of which the goals was offside, I'm not going to start dancing around and saying, yeah, we've got our striker now. I'm happy for him though because I think he deserves it, and I actually think he's madly underrated in general. I
He's a good
think
player.
he's a
He's a
very
good
very
player.
handy player. He's
Mm.
he's a handful. He's a nightmare for defenders. And the way that everyone raves about Nico Jackson, like I've heard certain Chelsea fans calling him like God's gift to bloody football and striking. Gabby Jesus is what all of those Chelsea players think Nico Jackson is right now. Right, can't really finish that much. Couldn't hit a barnyard with a banjo, but he does all the great build-up play, and he's a nightmare for the defenders and all this other stuff that they say about Nico Jackson, right? So Gabby Jesus is that embodied, right? Like he is an absolute nightmare to deal with. He seems to have, I don't know, an energy that just unsettles defenders, and I'm really happy for him because I do think he's a really good player. I do like him as a character. I think he's contributed a good amount to this team. I'm not going to say that he's been like the biggest contributor for the team, but he's definitely played his part in a lot of the, I'm not going to say the trophy successes because we haven't had any, but in the highs of Arsenal since the highs of Arsenal since we kind of popped out a couple of years ago. So from my point of view, I don't want to get rid of him. I think he's a great backup. I think he's a good option to play left wing, right wing, or striker. I also think, if we're going to do this faffing about in the future, if Odegaard gets injured again, don't put Trossard in the middle. I want to see Jesus starting a 10 because I actually think that there's. I know he wouldn't be the same necessarily as an Odegaard, but I think he's definitely better suited on the ball and his capability with the ball to play that role than Trossard is. So I think he's versatile. If he can stay fit, then obviously that helps. He's not on the craziest wages. So overall, I like him as a part of our squad. And I think he's good enough to be a rotational player in a Premier League winning team from my point of view. I think he'd be a fit backup for most teams alongside of people like Trossard and Havertz and so on. I think that's good squad or squad depth, I should say. But should he be our main striker? No. We need a slight level above that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, he's proven it, right? Like he has been a rotational piece in a Prem winning team at City. Like he obviously can do that. I guess he saw Arsenal as the chance to be the main guy, and to be honest, I think it's more injuries that have hampered him than his actual performances. Like, of course, he's had runs when he's been a bit smelly and he's not quite, scored goals. But I think there's also been games where his overall performance has still been okay and still been decent around that. It's just obviously strikers are judged by their performances. I think the Nico Jackson comparison is quite funny because he's kind of the opposite at the moment. He's scoring loads, and I know Chelsea fans will rave about his other things, but he's kind of a bit like a shin ankle baller type player. He keeps the ball without kind of knowing what's going on, but his finishing is massively improved. So, like Jesus, I think is a really good player all round. He's got great first touch. He's strong, but it's just been that striking element that he's been missing. So yeah, maybe a positional swap and putting him in a 10 or covering for Saka on the right. I think he's been good on the right hand side when he's played there. It might just be he's not your striker option. But yeah. I think some people will get giddy because the hat trick. I mean, he took the hat trick yesterday really well.
Yeah,
every finish
the
he banged it.
Class.
So
yeah.
Obviously, the first one, little dink. Then the other two, he absolutely slapped them in. So
the first one I was happiest with though, because like I've seen him do that and it go miles wide.
Well, it was the Chalobah bit that I really liked because Chalobah's a good defender, man. I like him, and for some reason though, he went to ground and Jesus just kind of rode it and still carried on and kept his composure and dinked over Henderson. So no, I thought they were all really good finishes, but yeah. Obviously, some fans will get giddy and stuff like that, but I think you're right to hold the horses on him. I think this doesn't distract away from your main striker. Probably needs to be better than Havertz, and maybe Havertz also needs to be a positional change where you move him out because you need a gunman. Like that's very very obvious. If the rest of your team's working and you don't have a striker that creates for himself or can finish the chances when they come up, if all your chances fall to Odegaard. Or someone else who's not a striker, like their efficiency when it comes to finishing is not going to be in that, top percentile. They're not strikers. They'll score their fair amount of goals. They're good, really good players in Odegaard's case, right? but he's a creator more than a finisher. You need someone in there who's going to take him. So I think it doesn't distract from that. But yeah, it was a nice little cameo to remind people that Jesus has got, he's not shot and he's not finished like some people may have said when he's had bad games or a slightly dodgy run of form. I think he's a decent player, man. So yeah. Keep him there for as long as possible, I'd say, if I was an Arsenal fan. All right, that's enough of Carabao Cup. You guys used to cuss me out when we used to talk about it when we won it, so we'll move on from that.
Don't forget the fact that you tried to make a massive deal out of it, and that's part of why.
Trophies, mate. Trophies.
Charity Shields. Shields. See, we can both play that game.
No, let's not get into it. The reason why actually United, I'll tell you this, honestly, the reason why is because we went through a bit of a drought like you're kind of going through now. That's not a dig. I mean, like, we didn't win a trophy, like proper trophy for like 5-6 years. Since I think Mourinho's Europa, right? We got close with the Europa again with Oli. And then when Ten Hag got the Carabao, it was more, I think, obviously there's some gassed fans that went over the top. I was only gassed about that because it was relief that we'd won a trophy, and it had been 5-6 years since we'd not won anything. But yeah, Carabao's still good though. If you haven't won anything for a while, going through like the bit of, jokes aside, going through like 4 or 5 years without a trophy, it's a nice one to kick things off.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah,
the big thing is it's better than nothing.
Kickstart. It's got to be a kickstart, and that's where people were saying, United fans were getting gassed when Ten Hag won it and were saying it was a kickstart, and we never kicked on. I know we won the FA Cup, but
But you also tried to say that you had a better year than us because we came second with nothing.
No, Carabao in third.
I'll continue to say though that. But you were miles away on third, and you were never in the title race at all. I'd rather, if I have to sacrifice winning the Carabao to actually be in the race for the Premier League, I would do that. Because if we're just going to be going around in a circle miles away from, at the time, Man City and now Liverpool and even Chelsea are doing it, if I have to trade in Carabao to be closer to them and actually have a chance of winning the Premier League, I will, because we can't just win Carabaos all the time, man. Like as I've said to you before, I want major trophies only, and particularly for Arsenal, we've won FA Cups. So I know we've had a bit of a drought with the Carabao now, but we've won FA Cups, which are, in my opinion, at a similar level, right there in terms of achievement. That's not going to tie us over too much, right? We need a Premier League or a Champions League, and I'd even prefer the Premier League there. I know we haven't won the Champions League, but give me the Premier League first, because that solidifies the fact that you are good for an entire year, and then from there we build on and try and get a Champions League. But yeah, I'll take it this year if I have to, but I don't. I would prefer Prem.
My point is, it's a perspective thing. So, like, you guys hadn't been in the title race for a little while, right? And you had won a trophy like 2 or 3 years before then, right, with Arteta and stuff like that. So it's all perspective. Like when we won the Carabao, we hadn't won anything for 5-6 years. We had finished second. We've not been in a proper title race, but had finished second a few years before that under Oli and stuff like that. So, like, different teams and fan bases will require different things. I think,
but it's also you take what is realistic. You take what is realistic, right? You were never in the title race that year, so you're not going to be like, oh, I have to get a Prem, because you were never. So based off of that, you want to win one of the other competitions you're in, because otherwise you're just, what are you playing for? You just, especially third, if you're in fourth, at least you're playing for like, oh, I have to keep the fourth spot so I can get into Champions League. But if you're comfortably third, but you're nowhere near title race
for us. We were in a top 4 race.
No, I know, but I mean, like, if you're nowhere near a trophy that you really, really want in terms of, let's say, the Champions League or the Premier League that year, then of course you're going to say, all right, if I've kind of got maybe Champions League football in the bag, I'll go for the Carabao or the FA Cup, right? That just makes sense to do, right? Like if this year, that's why I'm saying get me the Carabao, because I know we're not in a title race anymore. Like I've said it before, right? We're miles away.
But it moves.
The probabilities are so low, and obviously the Champions League is so hard. If I have to prioritize one, I'll say let's go Champions League. But I know that is damn near impossible to do. So I'm never going to be hanging my hat on the Champions League.
Yeah, the goalpost move, and like, you guys weren't expecting title race that year that you got it, right? You finished fifth the year before. You were expecting top 4, so like it changes with perspective and time and stuff like that. But
of course,
yeah, I think there'll never be like both sides will argue, had a better season. Like, at the end of the day, let's look at where the teams are now. Like, that's the most important thing. That season didn't kickstart for us, and in the end, we went backwards the following year. So, trophies can be important, and if you're going through a drought, or you're starting to include community shields and stuff like that, which you guys, I'm not joking only about Arteta. Like all of our managers have done it, right? Liverpool do it religiously. We've done it in times when things have been ropey. I remember Mourinho doing it. Like, that's a sign that you need to get a trophy, right? Like, get it so you don't have to start including.
If that's what you're reaching for, yeah.
So, yeah,
it's not
you need it. So I think it's a good chance, man. Let's see. Hopefully you guys, get through in the next round. It would be lovely if you played Liverpool. That would be amazing. The banter in the group chats will be top tier. Newcastle, you owe them a few after some dodgy trips to St James's Park, so that'll be good. And obviously, if you get Spurs, that'll be massive, or us, it will be massive. So it's a blockbuster semi-final lineup, whichever way it goes. So let's see how that goes. We'll know in a few months. That's the beauty of the Carabao Cup; it ends pretty soon. So you'll be able to lift. The winning team will get the trophy pretty soon. Let's move on to the past weekend's games then.